So we are going to begin with our webinar from today. Welcome to the Marfan webinar series. Thank you for joining us, to all of you in this edition. Today, still commemorating the 8th of March, this month we have a webinar focused on the role of women in conservation of the Mesoamerican Reef, called Caring for the Reef, Sustaining Life, Being a Woman in the Conservation of the Mar. And we sincerely thank the support of the Summit Foundation and 2X Global for allowing us to carry out this webinar and this project. Before we begin, for anybody that might need interpretation both from English to Spanish or Spanish to English, we are going to have a speaker in English. Some instructions: you can go to the interpretation icon. You can click in the controls at the bottom. You have like a world-like icon. And you can click here and you can choose the language that you want to hear, either Spanish or English. And if you just want to listen to the interpreted language, you can silence the original audio by clicking Mute Original Audio. So before we continue, we are going to remember some basic rules for the webinar. In these webinars, we encourage a space of learning and respect. We ask you all, please deactivate microphones and cameras throughout the whole webinar to avoid disruptions. Please help us by writing your full name, your country, and the organization you belong to in the chat. And finally, you may post your questions or comments in the chat. We ask you that you talk about the topics that are being discussed. The questions will be forwarded to the speaker and answered at the end of the session. It is important to remind you that the opinions expressed are sole responsibility of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the opinion or position of Marfan. Thank you all. Oh, I'm reading the comments very quickly and moving on. It is important to remind you that we have a grievance mechanism on Marfan, and we invite you to scan this QR code. Marfan has this very solid safeguard, social and environmental safeguards established, and we ensure that all of the grievances are addressed in a timely fashion. So we're going to leave this QR code in case you want to use this mechanism. It is important to remind you that you can find this in the Marfan webpage, or if anybody has any question about this grievance mechanism, you can communicate with us through the communication channels in the webpage. So now, very thankful. I want to welcome our speakers. We have four exceptional women that come from the 4 Mesoamerican Reef countries. And the intention of this webinar today is, in the framework of the March 8th International Women's Day, we warmly welcome you to this space for dialogue about a topic that can no longer be treated as secondary in the conservation of the Mesoamerican Reef. Speaking about women of the Mar is not only about recognizing their presence, but also the work that many of them carry out every day. From science, decision-making spaces, community, entrepreneurship with positive impact in the Mar, but also in the daily life. In a region like the Mar that is full of pressure, environmental pressures, inequality, unpaid care work, and structural barriers to reach funding in decision-making spaces, The 8M reminds us that it's not enough to talk about participation, but we must also discuss what conditions, what changes, and what support needed by a woman to make a real influence on the present and the future of the MAR. It is in spirit that this webinar brings us together and why we're honored to have us today. Women whose trajectories, experiences, and perspectives will help us reflect on this agenda from different territory sectors and forms of leadership. So I first want to present Dr. Dalila Aldana. She's main researcher at 3D Investav Merida. She's a biologist. She has a double PhD in biological oceanography, aquaculture, and fishing, and the second one in population biology. She works in the Caribbean with climate change, ocean acidification, microplastic, aquaculture, and fishing. She has a National Award of Ecological Merit, has an Honor Legion in France. She has an Award of Scientific Communication and Cinefish from the Gulf and Caribbean Fisheries Institute. She is the first woman to be president of the Gulf and Caribbean Fisheries Institute, and has many very important roles in the Ibero-American Network and the Mexican Academy of Sciences. But she also works in scientific communication and the 11F program of the United Nations about girls and women in science. I'm going to give her some space for her to talk about her work. Welcome, Dalila. Thank you very much for this presentation. And I want to congratulate all of the women here for all of the work that you do, for your professionalism in everything, in the organization, in the presentation, and the way we carry out everything. I feel very honored for this invitation, and I'm doubly honored to share this space with my other colleagues. The presentation is very, very complete of what I am. I would just like to add a specific thing of how, from a biological work, completely scientific, I have been able to build a road that has been very fulfilling. It's made me grow as a person and has made me very visible. And that road is the alliance with other institutions of the Caribbean and other people from the Caribbean and other associations. And this construction has allowed us to make alliances, to make programs. And I want to highlight one in particular, which is the one that we call Species and Spaces, Emblematic Species and Spaces of the Caribbean. And with this program, we have done endless activities, scientific per se, but also about education in all of the countries of the MAR. With this, I finish, and I would like to highlight a proposal that we can start giving shape to, depending on how we move forward, is why not starting today, do we think about building a program that now talks about emblematic women and their emblematic activities in the MAR? Like this. I return the microphone. Thank you, Dr. Dalila. And yes, I am sure that many of you can start talking about this. Now I want to give welcome to our speaker from Belize, which is Paulita Bennett-Martin. Paulita is Executive Director of Sea of Life. She's co-founder as well. An organization focused on the community conservation in the Caribbean. She's an advocate of protecting the ocean both in the USA and Belize, and has close relationship with South Florida and Belize City. She has done research in Belize about plastic pollution with many projects with community initiative. Her project has been funded by NOAA in the Virgin Islands, working with lionfish invasion and the communities. She has a background working in Oceania and Community and Climate Project with Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, and works as advisor of different NGOs and decision makers. Thank you, Paulita.
Thank you all so much. Good afternoon, good
Um,
morning, depending on where you are. Buenas tardes and buenos dias. I'm Paulita Bennett-Martin. I'm an ocean advocate, researcher, and the co-founder and executive director for Sea of Life, where I focus on people-centered conservation, entrepreneurial conservation, and really transformative conservation. So my work has taken me across different spaces and assignments in science, policy, and grassroots organizing. But what's stayed consistent for me across all of this work is that real lasting change requires us to protect more than just the ecosystems and the species that we love so much. It requires us to honor, protect, and empower people too. So that's what Sea of Life is about. That's what I'm about. When communities have the agency to protect the thing that they depend on, that's when things start to shift. So prior to Sea of Life, as it's been stated before, I worked for Oceana on policy campaigns to protect the ocean. I also served as an advisor to US Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. I've explored the topic of climate, of oceans, plastics, and justice in places as diverse as artisanal fishing communities in Belize, all the way up to the US Capitol. I've worked across many different types of communities, and the common thread I seek in every single space, from science to policy to art and storytelling, is I look for that undeniable connection to the sea. It's my purpose to connect all people with the marine life and conservation in a way that's meaningful and accessible and gets everybody excited about something that can seem very abstract sometimes. I think that's part of what today's conversation is really about, because caring for the Mesoamerican Reef isn't just about ecosystems, right? It's about people, livelihoods, culture, and connection. Culture. This is our part of our culture. And as women in conservation, many of us are navigating spaces where we will not only be doing this work, but we will also be the ones helping to reshape how the work gets done. So as women in conservation of the Mar, we are often building and challenging what collaboration looks like, what community is, and what long-term thinking can look like when thinking about the sea. For me, it's sometimes overwhelming, but it's always gratifying to be part of this movement of caretaking of the sea and of our culture, and to see how powerful it is when women's voices and leadership are part of the solution, are leading and guiding the solution. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation, learning from all of you, sharing stories, and exploring how we can continue to care for this Mesoamerican reef together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paulita. And yes, this is exactly what we're going to be talking about in a few moments. How the work specifically of women is creating and shaping the way that we approach these strategies. Now we're going to present Pili Luna. She is the CEO of Pili Luna Ocean Leather and Voz Honduras. She's a market strategist and product design specialist from Edison College. She is the founder and CEO of Pili Luna Ocean Leather and Voz Honduras. She is a social entrepreneur as well in blue economy, focused on transforming marine residue in sustainable materials. She has developed innovation techniques to transform fish skin to produce leather and marine collagen. Not only that, but she also has a regional impact. She has trained more than 1,100 women in Central America working with coastal communities. And she, as well as the previous speaker, she has received well-deserved international recognitions and participated in global events like the Americas Summit. Thank you, Pili. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you, Paulita, and to all the panelists. I'm very grateful to share this stage with them and to learn together. I want to really thank for this invitation. And Mariana, you have said a lot. Uh, it's different to just listening than what you see. This is a tuna fish from the waters of Panama. This one is fresh. This is a red snapper, and we allowed it to be like this to make it different. To from Roatan, Honduras. This is tilapia fish from Honduras as well. And in the end, this is what we create. We create products. We make many different. Okay, this one is another one that I really love. It's also a tuna from Panama. Um, right now, we are working in Roatan, certified by Roatan Marine Park, and I'm very proud. I see that Bessie is here. I send you a big hug. And we are working on training 88 women in the island. I designed a methodology to be able to teach and train women that live in the ocean and that live from the ocean to have an opportunity to regenerate this fish skin that used to be a waste before, because it comes from the fishing industry. And these skins were just thrown back into the ocean or were thrown into landfills. So I designed this methodology, this natural methodology. We don't use chemicals, we don't use chrome. We use noble materials with the environment and with people. And with this, we are bringing opportunities and a proper work and proper access to opportunities. And we strengthen the spirit of conservation and love for what you have, to take care of what you have. And this is a point where everything meets: community, circular economy, and innovation. Yes, it is a fascinating project. Thank you, Pili. You're going to tell us more a little bit about this later on. But all of us that are here so that we can all not only express and communicate, but establish all these new networks, all in the benefit of the Mar. And lastly, but not less important, we want to thank the presence of the Member of Congress, Karina Paz. She is a Congresswoman in Guatemala. He studied political sciences and international relations. She has legislative experience since 2017 and was reelected in 2019 and 2023 in parliamentary and advisory work. She supported the innovation to protect Cayman Crown Reef, focusing strongly in conservation and sustainable use of resources. She has also taken specific actions to reduce the weakening of environmental laws and to regulate pollution, and is the secretary of the first Congress Board in 2024, participating in the national legislation agenda. Other than thanking her presence, we want to congratulate her because not more than weeks ago, Congresswoman Karina became a mother. So talking about the work of women and the special conditions that we need to work in as women, we want to give a lot of thanks in this context to Karina, and welcome and thank you for being here. Thank you, Mariana, Marfon, and everyone that is here. Sincerely, I am very intimidated by sharing this space with so many amazing women. I'm sorry that I'm reading my CV with so many experts and doctors in the subject, and I am simply in politics. I love politics. I am a woman in politics. I don't have the technical knowledge that you all have, and I don't have the experience that all of you have in conservation and in community work with women in environmental topics. I do not have them, but I do have the best intentions to listen to experts like you so that we can achieve public policy and legislation in pro of conservation and the community work with women to protect our natural resources. And I am very happy that we are all here. I want to comment that about a year and a half ago, we started this law about protecting Cayman Crown, one of the treasure reefs of the Mesoamerican Reef. And I think it's very valuable that we know that we have this treasure so close to our territory, and that we need to continue strengthening these public policies, because focused on the women, and how we can contribute and add, innovate, and participate in the protection of these reef. Every time that I am invited to forums and webinars about the Mesoamerican Reef, or talking about water, or about about anything related to protection of the environment, these panels are always mainly women, and we are the women that are in these panels. I don't know why. There must be an explanation. There must be a scientific explanation for this, but it's many times women dominated, where the experts are women, and it's mainly the women that are supporting more women to make these projects a reality. So I am very happy to be here with you, to listen to you, what ideas you have. You are the experts. You know what we need to do. We are the channel that can allow for these things to happen, um, in the government in particular. But you are the expert in the matter, and I am very willing to learn and to listen, and so that we can achieve things together. On the contrary, thank you, Congresswoman Karina, and thank you all of your speakers. We have a very high level panel, and we're going to start with our conversation. We have very limited time. I think we can talk for a full day, but we're going to go directly to the topics. So we are talking about the participation of women, and women dominating many times this conservation spaces, the community work, how there's many women in all the programs and all of the projects and all the initiatives. We see the level of commitment that has a lot to do with a care economy and the gender role that historically have been assigned to women in many societies, this role of care. So I would like to start by talking. We see that conservation work in the Mar is not only sustained by science and monitoring or the projects alone. Of course, it's part of the pillars, but there's also another pillar that is not being recognized. That is the day-to-day work, the community relationships, the citizen science and the organization, the care and the adaptation. And in this sense, I would like to start taking the order of how we present it. I would like to ask Dr. Dalila, when we talk about the conservation of the Mar and the work that you do with other women in mainly motivating young women to develop and fall in love with these careers, when we talk about conservation of the Mar, what specific activities hold this conservation, and which do you think are still invisible or undervalued, even though they are fundamental for all of this? I'm going to give you the microphone. I'm just going to ask you to keep your interventions 2 to 3 minutes so that we can continue talking about all of the approaches that we have in mind for today. Thank you. As you very well said, the microphone is always beats us in time, because we have very, very enriching stories that we want to share. So at the end, I'm going to do proposal. Right now, my first proposal is to create a symposium of a couple of days where we can talk more in detail about this subject. So to talk about the question that you asked me, I would first talk about that problem of invisibility in science. It's there. It doesn't matter what area in science you belong to. And there's like 3 levels. There's the United Nations. This is why the UN determined this women and children in science. And all of these programs are days or actions to visibilize a non-resolved problem. And 8M is one of those. 11F is the problem of very little young girls in science. the other objective is to give opportunity to the young women that are starting in a scientific career. And the third one, that is the most invisible or the less visible, is recognizing the scientific women that already have a history and a trajectory. So from the age of 6, in a world scale, in a global scale, girls, because of stereotypes and role and gender roles, are automatically discarded from following a scientific career, starting from 6 years old. Then, when they have already done a scientific career, today, 1 out of 4 or 5 will eventually obtain a job in this area, even to the same diplomas. Men are still favored in the hiring, and this is why it is very important to work in public policy. How And the third one is very important with alliances with legislative work, and I've also done it. I like it very much to work with law. It's an example, a very interesting example, to work with women lawmakers, and to create a recognition for women in science. This still is a current subject because this has not been solved. And I know that through Marfan, we can do many important activities. There's a part of your question that I didn't answer. Could you ask it again, please? Yes, of course. And it doesn't matter. You don't have to answer specifically. But which works in particular are a little bit invisible or undervalued? I don't know if you want to add a little bit more. Yes, there's not one single topic. Really, it's the work of women, of scientific women, is continued to be not visible. I'm going to give two very specific examples with data from our countries. If you take in science, the leading women that are the leading heads of research groups, it's about 1/3. The other 2/3 are men that are leading these research groups, the ones that sign as main authors, the ones that lead the proposals. Women in science in a high level are usually second and third levels. This is a strong information, and I'm going to take advantage of how I'm going to take into account our Congresswoman's position right now. How long it takes for women to get to research positions, depending on each of the levels. Each level has 3 sub-levels. So the third level, 3C, is the major status in each of our countries. And with work that we have done in Mexico, we know that the data that even though we graduate with the same diplomas at an average age of 28, with a PhD, with a postdoctorate, starting to work in the scientific life, women, it takes around 7.8 years more to reach that highest category. 7.5 more years. And what does this mean? That their path, well, hypothesis 1 is that their path is a lot slower because of the other responsibilities at home, or 2, because of the low visibility and the low recognition of your contribution. And that way you have less certificates, less diplomas, less participation to go higher in your categories. 7.8 more years, meaning around a third of the professional lifespan. I'm done, Mariana. Thank you, Mariana. Thank you, Dr. Dalila. You always make us think, especially when we put the information in numbers. And I would like to take this question to Pili, that has shown us and has, well, trained more than 1,000 women in the rural community coastal context. What has the experience been like, Pili, working directly with these women? What part of the project in the communities, uh, in conservation, in, for example, fisheries, what have you seen in your experience in the field? How have you seen, and what disproportionate responsibilities are given to women and that are not taken into account in budgets, in proposals, and that are not recognized in all of this context? Well, I think very specifically under my experience, and I'm scared and I'm touched at the same time, that when I come to a community and I show them all of this, they're speechless. They say, "We didn't know that we could do this. We didn't know that this was possible. How is this turned from trash into something like this?" And generally in the communities that I work, that are mostly vulnerable communities, for example, in Mesquite, in Honduras, Santa Cruz, Roatán, Santa Fe Trujillo, in Guatemala, Puerto Barrios, in Panamá, Chiriquí, in Costa Rica, Islita. I have trained a lot of people in Central America, and I have seen always the same. The woman doesn't have the opportunities, a real opportunity, because they're always in charge of the children or of their parents or of their husband that is a fisherman that has a completely different schedule. Um, so this brings an opportunity for them to generate income through the community from something that is considered a waste, and do it in a creative way, using color and taking off the scales. And they say this is like therapy. They get involved in such a level, but it's not only a basic enthusiasm and illusion. It's taking it so that they create their companies, and that they can make decisions starting from their home to be empowered as women, to not only depend on somebody else. Exactly. And I think, and that takes me to the next question that I would like to ask Congresswoman Karina, and we're going to close with Paulita. I would like to ask, what differences do you see between a woman that is invited to participate in a project and a woman that has a real capacity to make decision? And what difference do we see in these aspects in the inclusion of women? So I think this is a very good question. That is the important, to have women in decision-making roles, that many times we think very differently. When I was hearing Dr. Dalila about women in science, it's the same with women in politics. In the Congress of the Republic, we are 20%. And we are always listening to commentaries. Why do you need to have more women in the Congress? Why do you need a minimum number? What is the benefit of having women congresswomen or mayors or presidents? And I am always like, first, us as congresswomen in our role, we were 20%, 31 congresswomen of 160. 98% of us had at least a university degree. Many of our colleagues, many of us have masters, and many PhDs. And if you see the side of men, they don't, nobody asks them. Nobody asks them if they went to university, if they studied anything. It is not the same. We have to demonstrate that we know. We have to demonstrate that we have the capacities. We have the capacities. We have to demonstrate that. And this mindset, I think, is still necessary because, for example, in the Congress, we are 160. I cannot decide for my country. I am one vote. And I would like to have more voice, and I would like to have more people in power that are conscious about the importance of protecting, for example, Cayman Crown. And everybody always asks me, why are you focused on saving this reef that we don't even know about, that we don't even see? And she answers, well, because if we take care of this, we're protecting life, we're protecting biodiversity, we're protecting livelihood. Guatemala is a country that has Atlantic and Pacific, and we are not a fishing country. We are not known internationally as exporting fish or seafood. We are not. Why? Because we have not taken care of our oceans. If we take care of our reefs, if we have laws that protect it, if we have public policy with community, with women, we're going to have an excess of resources. And with that, we're going to have economic improvements for our communities. We're going to have more strengthening of our country in general. And this is what we are looking for. Taking care of our reefs, we are also improving our water quality, and that knowledge that we have to take care of water. We have immense abundance of water, but it's 95% contaminated. And the way to strengthen and train women on how to take care of our resources and for them to understand why it's important and why our children are growing sick and why the ocean is important for life, for development, and for health of our countries. So yeah, I am in a position of decision making. I have made many proposals and I have done everything that's in my power, but we definitely need more citizens, better human beings in these decision-making positions. I think that we can all agree on this, that we have politicians that are not committed, that don't have an environmental or social conscience, that they don't care about our resources. They don't care about the inclusion of women in politics and science. So it is very hard because many times from my political position, I very strongly feel very lacking of power and I want to do more. And I very frequently face this wall that me by myself, I can't do this. And that is why I continue fighting on these initiatives. And it's the reason why I continue fighting because I know they're important for the region. And many times it's also disheartening to know that one person does not make a change. And this is where politics, yes, you have a lot of say, but on the other side, you know that one on its own cannot get all the results that you want. If it wasn't for me, we would already have an excess of women taking decisions, community leaders being trained, and it would be very different. But I think from my space, adding and not giving up. In Guatemala, we have been stolen everything, our safety, our education, our health, our infrastructure. But there's something that they can't take from us, our dreams and our hopes to build a better country. If they take that from us, we are going to close shop and leave. If they take that from us, we have nothing else to do. So I see many dreamers, women that are fighting, that are hopeful, and that believe that our region can definitely move forward. So together to continue building this path, each from our side, and also in a politics place, it's also my commitment to work in the inclusion of women in the environment and all of the noble causes that are missing in our countries. Thank you, Congresswoman. And now I want to talk with Paulita, thinking about all the limitations and how there can be still today in such important spaces like the Congress of a country, questioning of why we need women in these spaces. Paulita, with the experience that you have, both in the civil association community and advocacy, where do you see today the true bottlenecks? Thinking about funding, thinking about time, in representation, in access to land and boats and stuff, information, mobility, safety. Where do you think are the main bottlenecks for women to be able to access to these spaces? I'll give you the word. Sorry, Paulita.
Absolutely.
Now remember that if you need translation, you can
Okay.
click on the interpretation icon.
Yes. Thank you. So, yes, this is a great question. And it's actually, for me, it's pretty complex because I think the bottlenecks are a little different depending on whether you're working within an institutional framework like a university or a major regional body versus small grassroots nonprofits like Sea of Life, or you're a young student that's just coming up, right? There's going to be slightly different bottlenecks for everyone. But I think coming from the nonprofit sector, looking at funding, sustainable funding, multi-year funding is always an obstacle for organizations, because without that, we're continuously in a pattern of seeking help instead of going past the planting of our roots and starting to flourish. We continue to just try to survive, right? That's one of the big challenges. And I think that's been a challenge for nonprofits for forever, pretty much. But I also think that partnerships are a challenge. I think that partnering and partnerships are something that we're really exploring. A lot of larger institutions and entities are more aware of and used to partnerships. But as a small nonprofit, it's sort of a voyage of discovery for folks to learn what real partnerships look like and how partnerships can be leveraged to have larger impact, how partnerships can be leveraged to have long-term change, right? That we don't have to look at one another as competition, or that we're going after a small finite amount of resources, but that together we may be able to build and bring more resources and build long-term change, right? So that's something that I think is very important, because I've found in our experience that when we enter partnerships, a lot of times partnerships might mean that it's on paper. It's two names on a sheet of paper, or it is two names on a grant proposal. But partnership is about building a movement, building change, doing whatever it is that you set out to do, whether it's the next big research or it's the next solution, right? Or it's the next business, but that you're building lasting change. And then finally, I would say in the context of Belize, we work a lot with entrepreneurs in Belize, looking at ways to move away from single-use plastics. We also work a lot with women in our International Women in Conservation Summit that we host every year in Belize. And what we're finding is that capacity through our work with entrepreneurs, they're often still asking baseline questions years into where they should be more advanced. And so I think that there's a need for more capacity at an institutional level to help our people be up to par and be competitive with other places in the world, right? How do we not remain the sole provider of raw goods, and we start to diversify our economy, our blue economy for that matter? And so those are some obstacles I think that kind of float around in different spaces, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit, or even just empowering people as a whole.
Thank you, Paulita, and thank you for introducing this subject about innovation and entrepreneur. And going back to Pili, I would like to know if you can tell us a little bit more about your project, because it's fascinating and innovative, because it gathers a lot of the characteristics that Paulita mentioned. Um, the intention is not only to train women, it's for them to develop their own companies, to install the capacity to multiply the effects, not only environmental and social and gender related, but also more than the work that you've done and have you known in all of the spaces. um, what innovation do you see that are coming up in the mar that not only seek to protect ecosystems but redistribute the access to income and knowledge and decision making? What other than yours, what other innovations have you found in the region? Thank you. Well, innovation per se, I haven't really seen that much. Um, I would like to highlight how we can bring innovation, because many times we believe that funding has to come from grants, and funding has to come from uh, what I've seen in my career. And I'm not removing merit from our sponsorships and our funding from previous work that I have done with different organizations. I have worked with PNUD and different organizations, but now that I just came back, um, I got a call from two women, very enthusiastic women, that started the Roatan fashion show, and they wanted to bring a sustainable material to their runways. And it opened my eyes, and it woke me up in a way, because what they wanted was, they did a fundraiser and they invited people, and they did a night out, and we had raffles, and we achieved what we wanted. And it's not only coming from very bureaucratic processes like the ones that we are used to suffering through. But I think that for the protection of the reef, Betsy, for example, just did something very innovative. It was their birthday. They try to do funding, and we need to be innovative in where we are getting money from, because funding in training 100 women, it takes a lot of time, a lot of resources and knowledge, but you can do it in many ways. And I think in that we must innovate in the conservation and protection, because what I do is I recover or reuse a resource. Instead of it going to contaminate or pollute the ocean, we regenerate it, and we generate capacity and ability and skills in a group of women that used to not have them, and they can turn into something. And what I do is that I then buy the skins and the leather that they made, and I am the one that looks for other networking, and how we create other projects. So I'm also coming close to the tourism industry. How many presents does the government not give? Why can't the government start using these resources from artisanal women that are regenerating up and are helping to conserve the reef? But we need to do the networking. Right now, we have this experiment, and you can see is waterproof. It's the fish skin. We want to do the bracelets, because you have seen that all the hotels, all the all-inclusive and cruise ships and concerts, they have this plastic thing. And this plastic is going to end up in the ocean. Why not made it by fish skin that is not going to ruin everything, and is protecting and conservation And it's giving women so many opportunities of the area. And we can start changing in these small things. It's also about changing the style of life that we have. Yes, absolutely. I think that um, I really wish that if we have some people here in the webinar that are interested um, from a civil association or entrepreneur or any other space and that are interested and are working with similar projects, please let us know in the chat. And we are getting to the end. And as Dr. Dalila said, we need a whole symposium. In November, we have the International Women in Conservation Summit. Hopefully, we can later talk about going to Belize in November of this year. But going to the final rounds and the final reflections to start closing, I want to apologize. We're going to extend a little bit over time. If anybody wants or has to leave, we're going to extend a little bit more, only to close. In this last reflection round, I would like to ask Dr. Dalila, what do you consider is more transforming? A new technology, a new financial model, a new governance technique, or a new alliance between science and community? Well, the last round, so I have to take advantage of the microphone. Uh, I wanna highlight some things from my colleagues here. From Karina, our Congresswoman. I already have your information. She used the word what we don't see, and frequently I use that word of invisibility of the problem and the invisibility of the actions, obviously the invisibility of the role of women, whichever our area is, entrepreneurship, innovating, scientific, politics. It's very interesting, this webinar. It is a luxury to be here. And I'm going to give a phrase to all of you, but Congresswoman, you're going to notice it. Karina, you're going to notice it. Frequently in my presentation, I always give this phrase: what is the most transformative is being provocative. In these detonating phrases, because I frequently say that politics and governors like always beep beep solutions, like beep beep, like the run, like the road runner, the beep beep, meaning cheap, immediate, and of course popular. They're always thinking about being popular instead of VIP solution. Very intelligent person based on knowledge, on technology and science. And this is very frequent. For example, sarcasm, that we have it in all of our 4 countries in the MAR. What does the politician want? We want to hide it. What does the hotel owner want? That we don't see it. Change it from the beach, especially those who have touristic access, change it to the other side of the road, in the mangrove, in the forest. And we have 10 years of this accumulated sargassum biomass. And we're just moving it so that people don't see it. So this is something that I wanted to say. And Karina was saying that fight to have a presence of women, all of us have highlighted it. The UN for the International Women's Day of Science, simple, and because in science, we're lacking the other half. Here in politics, we are missing the other half. And not going subject by subject, simply to humanity, we are missing the other half. It is very simple. And this fight, we need to know that it is a permanent fight. And it's not a unique fight. all of us are always constantly fighting in our center of work. Well, all of us that have conviction. Many are adapted to the mold, but for all of us that are out of the mold, we're constantly giving this fight to empower women, to empower young women, to recognize the senior scientists in these actions that I do. A couple of years ago, we recognized a colleague, and she started crying when we gave her the recognition. And she told me, Dali, short for Dali, short for Dalila, this year I am getting my pension, and I had never been recognized. And it is very clear to me that this visibility, specifically in women, in very similar roads, with very little time, do we have the opportunity, the lack of opportunities and door opens to receive this recognition that makes ourselves visible. And when we get them, we have two roads of using this visibilization to continue working, or going in the egotistical way, just put it on the wall and leave it there. I have used it a lot in that commitment to continue constructing, but I am not example for anything. And what has helped me the most to answer, Mariana, your question that I never answer is alliances. For me, everything that you mentioned, all of those roads are very useful. But in my personal level, in the work that I've done, scientific, education, something we have worked on as well is education. Working not only on teaching students, but teaching teachers in primary education. We work on citizen science that is very important. Adults do not have environmental education. They are very reluctant to change. And of course the subject on plastics, and I love that two of you are working with this and all of the alliances that we can do. And this webinar is that exactly, the potential to do alliances. Here, I already saw how I'm going to create these alliances. And since it's the last round, these are my three proposals. First, think about building this symposium or this scenario where women and emblematic activities in this region. One proposal. Second one is a couple of days, maybe not more because we don't have resources, but have a couple of days of networking between entrepreneur, scientists, and of course, lawmakers as well. In the legal framework we are, that's the second proposal. And associated to this one, the visibilization of women in this region and all of the actions that we have to start going towards a word that I think Mariana did, a redistribution, a fair redistribution. We don't talk about equal, we talk about fair, of the income that are coming from economic activities. Women have secondary and tertiary roles. Fishermen are in the first line, but women are the ones that are filleting, that are cleaning, that are removing shells. And women, usually these jobs are not with a payment. They receive just a basic economy from the husband, the boyfriend, the cousin, but they're not even officially employed. So these are my three proposals. And to tell you that it has been a true pleasure to be invited to this webinar and to be with you. Mariana, I return the microphone. On the contrary, Dr. Dalila, and subjects of time, I know we're a little bit over time, but Pili, you were talking to us about innovation and in finance and funding. And I would like to ask you, Pili, I'm sorry that I'm giving you less time, but taking this proposal of Congresswoman Karina, if we really wanted conservation of the sound more robust and more fair, what thing, I hope we had time for more, but what priority do you see as the main one, the priority for change? Where do we need to invest? Where do we need to start to be able to shift this transformation to a more robust and fair conservation? So go ahead, Paulita.
Wait, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking to Pili, but I I think that to shape, and I hope I'm getting the answer to you, but I have a few things coming to mind. I think, to shape the future that we want to see in the work and to answer the questions that you've posed, we need to work to encourage that we're continuously lifting up, connecting resources, connecting people, community. This is part of the work that we do, as you've mentioned, with the International Women in Conservation Summit. But it's not just about NGOs, it's something that we need to help to encourage culturally. And part of why I'm saying this is it relates back to the resources, the alternative way funding mechanisms, right? Like the different ways that we can be sustainable as organizations. If we are working more towards a movement, not just a discipline and not just an industry, right? But more of a movement, we will all come out the better in the end. We will all create impact that's insurmountable. And that can be the type of support that we have, the funding that we receive, the resources that we all receive and are distributed. But it can also, that will lead to the impact that we want to see, that we dream of in our minds. We all started this work with a dream, right? We all started this work with a vision of this thing that we love, that we fell in love with, and that we wanted to protect, or this thing that we wanted to create because we know it's the solution. And connecting all of that and connecting with one another to lift all of those things up will benefit us all.
Thank you, Paulita. Short and sweet. Congresswoman Karina, please, what would need to change or where would you put your priority? It's a very complex question. Um, I think that mainly in the education, in creating conscious communities, many times we don't know the impact. We don't know the impact of taking care of our resources. Yes, we talk about the Mar, but going back, we need to go way back. We need to talk about waste management, plastic management, about water pollution. Motagua River is releasing a lot of waste, of human waste, pieces, plastics that go directly to the Mar. And this is something that we need to change that chip to change the way we think. I want to comment an anecdote. I was in my campaign and I had a mayor tell me, oh, here in our community, we have a big problem. And he was, okay, tell me what is this big problem that you have? And he said, the biggest problem that we have is that we don't have a river. And I was like, what do you mean there's no river? You don't have water? And he was like, no, we don't have a river. We do have water, but we don't have a river that takes away our trash. We don't have a way to get rid of this trash, and it's impacting the lack of education. We need to invest in education and knowing how to protect our resources. And I see so many communities that talk about the big industries and what they contaminate. But here we use woodwork. We use wood to generate fire. And yes, of course, these are poverty conditions, but these are models that we have to start changing to a better use of our resources. We see in our communities, we don't have places to put our trash. We have just communal places where people throw, we don't have a differentiation between sewage water and other waters. We just went through in Guatemala on knowing how to separate our waste. We don't separate our wastes. Just by separating them, we would change a lot. And we don't do this yet. And this education and this change in chip and this change in mentality, we do, of course, need a structural level of education in a higher level, but I do think that it's important to change that to strengthen the educational structure where we are conscious and where we all understand that each human being alive has an environmental impact. And as human beings, we must be responsible for the impact that we're generating. We can just be saying that, oh, it's the big mining companies or the big companies. No, me, Karina, just for being alive, I generate an environmental impact. And how am I conscious on how I'm gonna take part in balancing that impact that I generate? So I think education, I would bet a lot on education to change that obsolete model that we have, because what we're doing is not working. We need to dare for more and dare for an aggressive change in a model. As Dr. Dalila said, we need to provoke, we need to change our system, and we need to be aggressive with this, where we can see the results for our countries. Thank you, Mariana, and thank you for being here with us, sharing this stage. Thank you. And think about all the transformations and close our webinar. We don't have many chats. We have many comments, very interesting comments, strengthening the experience of our colleagues here. And yeah, I just want to strengthen our invitation to the Women in Conservation Summit and think about what Pili said. I would like to give you 1 minute, Mariana Madero from New Ventures, and she's going to tell us about all the need of transforming the model or investing in women and generating the conditions of innovation and transformation. I don't know, Mariana, if you can, I don't know if you can open your microphone. I don't know if there's some restrictions, but Mariana, if you can help me telling them about the new acceleration program that was approved this year with financing from the Resilience Futures Fund. And it's focused in the work of women, entrepreneur women, starting from the initiative. Yes, we will give you more information on the summit. With Paulita, you can share of life. But through the initiative of More Positive Invest, we identify the necessity, the urgency to work in a program specifically focused on women, on entrepreneur women, recognizing the role as sustaining life and sustaining resources. But maybe Mariana, I am here. Yes, my camera, I can't open it, but very, very shortly, because Mariana already gave a big introduction, I want to congratulate all of you, and what an incredible space, and thank you for this. And taking advantage of this space, we want to share this space, and we're going to start the call in 15th of April. It's called Share the Ocean. And what it aims is to support women in climate solutions in the Mesoamerican Reef. And it's going to have in-person trips and opportunity to apply for grants, one-on-one support, a training on climate subjects. And what's important to create a network of entrepreneur women in the SAM, in the MAR. And we're very, very happy to announce this today and wait a little bit more information on the 15th of April. And I really want to congratulate all of you. And Mariana, thank you so much. We already stole 2 extra minutes. We're going to be sharing more information. But to summarize, we want What we're interested in, Marvin, is to start strengthening, to start taking these networks, but also looking to strengthen and unite women in a way to provoke and innovate the structure. Uh, Thank you to all of you. Please follow us in our links and any questions that you might have. Thank you. Thank you to all of you. A hug to everyone here.